Your entire retirement plan is probably one number long, 4%. Save 25 times your spending, withdraw 4% a year, and the money outlives you. It's quoted in every retirement thread on the internet, every early retirement forum, every comment section where someone asks, "How much do I need?" The number comes from a study written in 1994, using market data that ends before most of the people quoting it were born. So we did what this channel does. We didn't quote the rule. We built 10,000 retirements and threw the rule into all of them. It survived 87% of the time. And the strangest part isn't the 13% who went broke. It's what happened to everyone else. Because the 4% rule doesn't just fail downward, it fails in both directions at once. Stay with me. First, what the rule actually says, because most people quoting it get it wrong. It is not withdraw 4% of your balance every year. That version can never run out of money and also can never give you a stable income. Your paycheck would crash every time the market does. The real rule, in year 1, withdraw 4% of your starting portfolio. 1 million saved, $40,000. Then every year after, you ignore the market completely and just raise last year's dollar amount by inflation. 40,000, 41,2, 42,4, a salary from your savings that pretends the stock market doesn't exist, designed for a 30-year retirement, assuming half to 3/4 stocks, assuming no fees. Remember those 3 assumptions. Each one of them is about to matter. Here's our lab, 10,000 simulated 30-year retirements. Each one starts with $1 million in a 60-40 portfolio. Returns drawn from a distribution averaging 7.8% a year with realistic volatility. Some years up 18, some years down 12. Just like the real thing. Inflation, 3%. Every assumption on screen, as always. This isn't a replay of history. It's 10,000 possible futures. Withdraw 40,000, raise it with inflation, repeat for 30 years, 10,000 times. Go. Result 1. The rule works 86.7% of the time, which means roughly 1 retiree in 8, following the most famous rule in retirement planning to the letter, runs out of money before they run out of retirement. That's the failure everyone talks about. Here's the one nobody does. Look at the people it worked for. The median retiree, the middle outcome of 10,000, followed the 4% rule for 30 years and died with $2.18 million, more than double what they retired with. Sit with the absurdity. The same rule that bankrupts 1 person in 8 also made the typical follower spend 3 decades eating $40,000 a year off a pile that grew to $2 million, skipping vacations, worrying about restaurant bills, dying as the richest person in the cemetery. The 4% rule is simultaneously too dangerous for the unlucky and too stingy for everyone else. It fails both ways. Almost nobody lands in the middle it was aiming for. Why? One word, and if you've watched this channel before, you already know it. Chris and Derek retire on the same day. Same $1 million, same 4% rule, and here's the experiment. The market gives them the exact same 30 years of returns. Identical list, averaging 7.5%. One difference, the order. Chris gets the bad years first. A crash right as he retires. Down 12, down 18, while he's pulling out $40,000 a year from a shrinking pile. Every withdrawal in a down market sells more shares that are gone forever when the recovery comes. Derek gets the same bad years, at the end. His crashes land on a portfolio that had 2 decades of growth first, when losing 30% still leaves millions. Chris is broke in year 22, ruined, 8 years of retirement left, and nothing to fund it. Derek dies with $4.18 million. Same returns, same rule, same discipline. The only thing that differed was the order the years arrived in. The one thing no one can control or predict. That's sequence risk. And it's the entire reason the 4% rule can't just be followed. The rule's fate is decided in your first 5 years of retirement by a market that doesn't know you exist. Now let's break those 3 assumptions from earlier, one at a time, and watch the number rot. 30 years. That was for people retiring at 65. Retire at 50, the way half the internet plans to, and you need 40. Success falls from 87 to 74. 1 in 4 early retirements, ruined, following the rule exactly. Next, the study's world had no fees. At a completely ordinary 1% advisory fee, the industry standard, and 30-year success drops from 87 to 77. Read that again. 1%, the number your advisor calls small, costs 10 full points of your retirement survival odds. It is the single most expensive line item in this entire episode, and it's printed in the footnotes. And if future returns run lower than the 20th century, not a disaster, just 6.3 instead of 7.8, success drops to 70%. Stack them, early retirement, lower returns, and a fee. 46%, 30%, the most famous rule in retirement planning, under assumptions that describe millions of real people, becomes a coin flip. Then, worse than one. So what's the real safe number? Wrong question, and this chart is why. There is no number. There's a dial. At 3%, you survive 98% of futures, and need 33% more savings to fund the same lifestyle. At 5%, you're at 65 and falling. Every tick of the dial trades years of extra working and saving against percentage points of safety. 4% isn't a law of nature. It's 1 point on a curve chosen in 1994 for a 30-year horizon in the American century. Your point on the curve depends on your horizon, your fees, and your nerves. And now the part that should make you slightly angry because of how cheap the fix is. Change exactly one thing. Keep the 4% rule. But any year the market finishes down, you skip that year's inflation raise. That's it. You don't cut your income. You just don't raise it once after a bad year. The sacrifice is a restaurant tier for 12 months occasionally. 30-year success from 86.7 to 94.8. To buy that same safety by saving more instead, you'd need an extra $143,000 in the portfolio. One sticky note on the fridge, bad year, no raise, is worth $143,000 of additional savings. That is the cheapest safety anyone will ever offer you, and the rigid version of the rule leaves it on the table because the rule was designed to be simple enough to fit on a bumper sticker, and bumper stickers don't bend. Now, the case for the rule, because it's real, and because the man who wrote it deserves better than his bumper sticker. 1. As a savings target, it's brilliant. Save 25 times your annual spending turned a fog. How much do I need? Into a number a normal person can chase for 30 years. Millions of people saved more earlier because the fog had a number in it. As a target, keep it forever. 2. Nobody actually retires like a spreadsheet. Real people seeing a crash in year 2 don't rob a bank. They trim, they flex, they skip the trip. The rigid version we tested is the worst case version of human behavior. Real retirees run the sticky note by instinct. 3. Even the original author never froze it at 4. The research that followed adjusted it up and down with conditions. The rule was always meant to be a starting point that got updated, and the internet is what turned a first draft into scripture. The rule isn't wrong. The rule is 1994's answer, canonized. The math was honest. The worship wasn't. Every episode of this show ends the same way, and by now you can say it with me. The trap was never the number. The trap is treating a dial like a law. 4 questions decide your actual number. How long is your horizon? 30 years or 45? What are you paying in fees? And yes, that 1% is a retirement-sized decision. Will you actually flex in bad years? Put the sticky note on the fridge now, while you're calm. And the one that decides the sequence risk war, in year 3 of a crash, with the internet screaming, will you hold? Answer those 4, and you don't need anyone's rule. You'll have your own. And that last question, will you hold, turns out to have a strange answer. Because next time, we look at the data on the investors who never checked their portfolios at all, the ones who forgot their passwords, the ones who, in one famous internal study, were dead. They keep outperforming everyone, including the professionals, and the reason why says something genuinely uncomfortable about your brain. That's the next episode. Until then, run the numbers, all of them. What's your number and your withdrawal rate? Defend it in the comments. I read all of them. Nothing in this video is financial advice. It's education and entertainment. Your retirement, your horizon, and your nerves are yours. Run your own numbers or talk to a licensed advisor.